Welcome back to our next episode of Delight and Salt and Light. My name is Annalise, and you have heard from me in the previous episode where we went over the testimonies of Michaela, Michelle, myself, and my twin sister Chloe. In this episode, you're going to hear from Gigi, Morgan, and Shaq. You're going to hear from Gigi first because it's a continuation of the previous episode where we went over the testimonies of those who didn't grow up in Christian households. And later on in the episode, you're going to hear from Morgan and Shaq, who did grow up in Christian households. Wherever you're listening to, I really hope you enjoyed this episode and listening to it. And please feel free to leave a rating, leave a comment, leave a like, whatever you wish to leave. But I really hope you enjoy this episode wherever you're listening to us. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Gigi. Did I grow up in a Christian household? That's a loaded question. I grew up with my mother and my father who don't have much faith. I mean, they believe in God. They grew up Catholic themselves, but I guess once they moved into America, they've kind of lost their beliefs. And I mean, it's easy when you're chasing the American dream, I guess. I grew up in a household that I wasn't even allowed to cross the street. They were very overprotective with me. I could barely even take a shower without my mom having to be like right there hovering over me. I grew up with a lot of toxicity. I definitely did not grow up in a Christian household, to make it short and simple. My siblings, I mean, I don't really speak to any of them. Those are all broken relationships that I do pray that one day will get fixed. So as for their faith, I really am not sure and I can't speak of it, but my testimony is so loaded that I'll try to keep it short and simple for the podcast, and we can always touch base on other things. But I think that because of the way that I was abroad and with such close quarters and everything, every move was being watched, and I wasn't allowed to have friends over, I wasn't allowed to have sleepovers, I wasn't even allowed to have a lemonade stand. I think that once I turned 18, and I mean the problem started way before I turned 18, but once I turned 18, I think that that's when I was like, hey, I have freedom. They can't tell me what to do anymore, and I'm going to do whatever I want. And it was all downhill from there. I got involved in drugs. I kept finding satisfaction in temporary things, whether it was boys, love, sex, indulging in alcohol, or again, the drugs. I just wanted to be loved, and I just wanted to fit in, and that's all I ever remember is wanting, craving that love, craving that attention, even if it was temporary, even if it was my friends or the guy or whoever it was, even if they were just using me. I just wanted that love and that attention. At 23, I was so desperate for that love and attention that I started doing stupid things, such stupid things like trying to buy people's love, but not in the right way, not with my own money. I started scamming, and I actually ended up in jail. And those were some of the worst days of my life. I got arrested around Christmas and didn't come out until maybe right before Easter. When you're in a jail cell and when you don't have anyone, you get to spend a lot of time with God, let me tell you. And I spent a lot of time with God. And I was in special programs, and she wasn't a mentor, but she was someone who would go to the church. And if it wasn't for her group, I probably wouldn't have known God to the extent that I knew him while I was in there. I was released, went back into society. I think maybe the same week that I got released, my mom begged me not to go out. And I said, no, I'm going out. What happens? I got into a fight, got arrested. Luckily, I didn't go to jail that time, but, you know, I just kept making the same mistakes, and not really learning from my mistakes. And it's so easy to lose God while you're living your life or while you're trying to impress people, and you kind of just forget what your focus is supposed to be on. I was definitely lost. Then comes Isaiah's father. Isaiah's my son, my oldest son, and that was a train wreck, for lack of better words. I'm a domestic violence victim, and he beat me every day of my pregnancy, before my pregnancy, even after my pregnancy. I was so skinny with my son. My son only weighed 5 pounds. He weighed premature weight. That's how bad this relationship was. I lived in a car. I was homeless. I left my house because my mom couldn't watch me get beat anymore, and I didn't want to leave him because he was the father of my child, quote unquote. So I left. I slept in cars. I slept in benches. I slept outside, at bus stops, on the grass, in the backyard, occasionally on the floor of his brother's room if he allowed us to stay there. But I didn't have God then, and I lost him so quickly, and that feeling of I felt like I had nothing, and I felt like I was so gone. I didn't even know why God was giving me a son. Why? I have nothing. That's all I kept saying. I have nothing to offer him. I am no one, because that's how I kept feeling. With every hit, he just kept taking a part of me away from me. And then my friend Nikki, that I love so much, and I'm so thankful for Nikki and Kimmy, they were like, come to church with us. Like, let's go to church. And I was hesitant because I was like, I don't know anything about church. I got to tell you, like, I became Catholic at the age of 16 because I wanted to be Catholic and I wanted a sweet 16. So I had no concept of faith. And they took me into Center Point. And I just remember that warm feeling when I walked into church, and people that didn't even know me showing me their love and their compassion and hearing me, and just I felt like I was home in a way. It's just such a weird sensation that I felt that day, and I'll never forget because I never stopped going. So we're gonna fast forward a little bit. I went back to the streets. I started partying again and started hanging out with my friend group. Well, not my friends, people that I thought were my friends, and they were only my friends when I had the money, when I had the bottles, or if I was paying for VIP, or if I was doing this, or if I was doing that. They weren't really my friends. They were my friends for partying reasons. And again, it was just so easy for me to lose that, and I still try to figure out why it was so easy to lose what I had, because I felt so empowered by going to Center Point, and then I ended up right back. And one of our pastors once gave a sermon about having one foot in and one foot out, and that's just not the way that we're called to be Christians. So when I was partying and everything, I found out I was pregnant again. And I just remember saying, I can't have this baby. And my mother telling me, when I told her, because mothers have intuition, so when I told her that there was something I needed to tell her, and she said, I know you're pregnant, but you're having an abortion, I don't think anyone will understand the heartbreak that one feels when their mother tells them, go have an abortion. I'm happy that I didn't. And I'm happy that I prayed so much. I went back to Center Point. That's around the time that we opened up our Westbury campus. And although that campus doesn't exist anymore, I'm very thankful for that campus. I found my family. I prayed. I was alone. I kept saying, I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. My mom just told me to have an abortion. I already have a son that I'm a single mom with this kid. How am I going to do this again? There was no domestic violence, but this guy wanted nothing to do with his daughter. So what do? I had no support. And it's just crazy how God works things and how everything really is part of his plan, because I was going to Westbury and I was in part of the launch team and I was part of the tech team and I was part of greeting, and I had one conversation with this lady who changed everything for me, because she has never ever, she's my mentor now, she has never ever judged me. She has always come up to me with loving arms and loving ears, and she hears me out and listens to me. And you know, my son barely had anything. I didn't want my daughter to have more than my son. They come up to me one day at church and they were like, hey, we want to have a baby shower for you. No one's ever, I'm so used to being the one that does everything for everyone else. No one's ever done anything for me. And I was like, no, I don't want a baby shower. My son didn't have one. It's not fair to him. They were like, one thing doesn't have to do with another. Long story short, there goes my baby shower. People, complete strangers to me at the time, showed me all this love that I've wanted and prayed for so long. And if it wasn't for God, and if it wasn't for Centerpoint, it just would have never, it would have never happened. It would have just, I would have still been lost. I still question sometimes, why me? Why am I here? There's many times that my nights out have been questionable. There's been many times that I probably shouldn't have woken up, but God has a plan for me. And I rest on that, and I take comfort in the fact that He has a plan for me. No matter what I go through, no matter how much pain I endure, no matter what happens, I know that His plan is always going to be a good plan, and He takes all that ugly and turns it into something beautiful. Last year in the women's retreat, I shared my testimony about things that have happened in my life, things that I haven't even mentioned on this. This is just part of my testimony. I mean, I've been through a lot, and these grown women were looking at me like, you're just telling this story, and they were just such in awe. And just from a little bit of me telling a little bit of my life, they started sharing their testimonies and stuff, and I made a difference, because there was this one lady who, on the way to the retreat, had one mindset, and on the way back, it was a completely different mindset. And if it wasn't for the testimonies and the sharing and that, I don't think that it would have ever happened. And I reflect a lot on Psalm 23. Even if I walk through the darkest valley, your staff and your rod guide and they comfort me. And sorry, I'm paraphrasing, but I've walked through the darkest of valleys, and I know that even though I've disconnected from the Lord, I know that He's never disconnected from me, because He has guided me. He has comforted me. I think that my testimony is still going. I don't think that it's over. I think that every day there's a new part added to my testimony, because every day I'm learning something new, and I'm getting to know Him more, and I'm being more in His presence. I think we're all work in progress. I think that that's just how life is. I think that we're all just working on ourselves still and trying to get closer to God. I've made so many mistakes in my life. There's not a single thing that anyone can tell me that they've done that I'm not gonna, I understand, because I've made mistakes in my life. But what's amazing about these mistakes, and what's amazing about everything that I've been through or the next person has been through, is that we have so much grace because of Him. He's given us our grace. He has forgiven us. He did the ultimate sacrifice and died on that cross for us. So how do I repay Him? It's by sharing my testimony, by showing that I am living proof that His love endures everything. I'm the living proof that no matter what the circumstances, you could still rise above. I've been there. I've been in jail. I've been sexually abused by my brother. I mean, I've been in toxic relationships. I've been in domestic violence. And I've committed, obviously, the sin of sex, because I have 2 kids. And He still loves me. that doesn't change anything, and it doesn't change my identity because I'm still his daughter. So I'm hoping and I pray that when people hear my testimony, or once we dig deeper into my testimony, that people will know that his love endures, his love, his grace covers us, and it's never too late to run to him, to run to the Father. That's probably one of my favorite songs. I run to the Father over and over and over again. There's no mistake out there that I am not running to my Father, because it doesn't matter. He still loves me, and he still will forgive me.
Hello, welcome to, what's the name of the podcast again?
Delight in Salt and Light.
Okay,
right?
We're keeping that in there that I forgot that. That's totally fine.
Right. Okay.
So,
Okay, so this is Shaq, and I have Morgan with me,
hello.
and then we're going to share our testimonies.
Yeah.
So,
we have like a 7-part question, so we're going to start with the first one. How did you grow up in a Christian household? If you did...
how or just did, you mean?
Well, I'm going to reword the question and just make the first two one.
Okay.
So, how or did you grow up in a Christian household? And if you did grow up in a Christian household, how did your parents reflect Christ in your life?
Okay, so yes, I did grow up in a Christian household. My mother, she came from another country. She's from Jamaica. And ever since then, she was saved. And my father, he believes in Christ, but he doesn't go to church. He doesn't, read the Bible as he should. And I went to a religious school. So I started going to a Catholic school from when I was like 7 years old, I want to say. So from there, it's been expected of me to just follow his word and be disciplined in my faith. And what was the other part of the question?
The other part of the question is only one of them was a follower. How did that change the dynamic of your family or make it difficult? And then
I didn't see difficulty because it was actually my father's idea. Even though he didn't go to church, it was his idea for me to go attend a religious school in general, because he kind of wanted me to stay out of trouble because I was kind of like a class clown or whatever growing up in school. So
they made a game about me.
Oh, back then.
Middle school. Oh my God. Well, I'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So even though he wasn't that religious, he still wanted me to, instead of going to a traditional public school, he wanted me to stay into. And then afterwards, I went to a Christian school. But I think me just starting out in the Catholic school is because A, it was closer to where I lived at the time, and then B, the academics of it. So I kind of just transitioned from that Catholic faith to the Christian. But originally it was Christianity. That was the center of our household. But so what about you? How'd you
As for me, sorry, Johnny Cash got stuck in my head. For me, both my parents were saved. They both got saved at different points. My mother got saved after she left the Navy, and my father kind of became like involved in the youth ministry at a couple of churches on the island, and that's how he found Christ. But I've grown up with them going to church. That's actually how both my parents met, was through the church. My mom used to sing in the choir at a church called Upper Room, and my dad was working the soundboard with my mother and father's mutual friend, and that's kind of how they met. When I was growing up with them, there was a lot of church going, and that's kind of how I found who Christ is and was learning about it. But my parents are very they had a lot of screaming matches, so it just became very normal for me to hear that. I don't know why there was always like a lot of screaming, and even to this day, even though I live with them, I still don't understand the screaming back then. I think it was because it was a new marriage and things were stressful. But I grew up in the church. I grew up learning about Jesus Christ through both my family and the church, and that's kind of how I started off. And now I think we're on question number 4, which is...
the sibling thing. Do you have any siblings?
I'm an only child, man. I am bored all the time. You have no idea. I always got most of the presents in Christmas.
That's good.
It's good, but then it's like, hey, brother, how was your day today? Oh, it was good, older brother. I never had that experience. Or like younger sister or something like that.
So for me, I have 2 older sisters and 1 older brother. They're not saved. Only one. My sister, oldest one, she is now. But growing up, if we're talking about back then, no, they weren't, and they didn't really. What does it say? What is the question? No.
How did it
Affect or help?
Did any of you? Okay, did you help any of your siblings
Come to Christ?
Yeah.
No, because due to the fact also there's an age gap, a big age gap, about 16 years. So
Wow.
my sister is like, they're older, a lot older than they're in their 40s now. I'm 30, so I couldn't at that age. I couldn't really influence them at the age of 8, 9 years old or whatever. They're like practically adults. At that point.
Yeah.
So no, it was kind of. It would be very difficult. I would have to be wise beyond my years to even scratch the surface with them. So I could have, if I were the older sibling, I would like to. I would have liked to, influence them, but I couldn't. I just wasn't intelligent enough at that point. So
Did anyone ever mistaken you for one of their children at one point?
yeah, we'd go out to the mall. Yeah, they would think that. Cause my sisters, they used to babysit me or whatever, so they were like my second and third moms, basically.
Yeah. The microphone's a little wobbly. That's okay.
Oh, my bad. I think.
No. It's not you. It's the literal mics and it's falling apart. It's so old. Yeah, we're starting this whole podcast on a shoestring budget, man. I guess the next question. Do you want to read it?
Okay. It says, "How did you come to be saved and consider Christ as your Savior?" Okay, so for me, this was about high school, I would say, because at that point, I was more mature. Not only just in my faith, but just in general. Due to the fact that I was so young, I wasn't really taking religion as seriously as I should have. Not saying that I didn't want to be a follower, but I just wasn't. I didn't know how serious it was, and etc. So
yeah.
Let me see. Wait. So I would say around when I was like 15 or 16, so that's like mid-high school years, where I actually started to practice it outside of school. Because back then it was kind of like, okay, we go to school and we do worship, we sing songs and everything, but we do it in school. I wouldn't actually take it home with me, but I would say teenage years I would actually hang around different people because I didn't want the wrong influence. And then early college, I kind of started going to like youth groups and just trying to surround myself with more like-minded Christians.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
So I got saved in the 3rd grade. I don't remember the exact things that led me to getting saved because it was so many years ago, and I did not journal at all. But
So you didn't take it as seriously, basically.
well, I mean, I did because I was crying at the time, and I think it was right after my grandmother died, and I kind of had like a feeling of my mortality. It's either my grandma or my grandfather.
Okay.
My grandfather served in World War II. Hilarious story. He never talked about World War II except this one story where he was in a building and he was cooking a sausage and they were shelling the building that he was in. And so he's like duck and cover. He's still cooking the sausage somehow while the building's being shelled. And as soon as it was done, he gets up, he grabs his rifle, he gets out. His ally is coming around the bend. They both point their rifles at each other. He's like, so are we going to shoot each other or are we going to come inside and have a sausage? Very John Wayne of my grandfather. But It was probably after my grandfather died. That's when I kind of got saved, because I really missed him. I knew he was, I think he was Catholic, but I believe he was more on the Christian side. Another funny story about him later. But that's kind of how I came to it, because I was crying, I was worried. And after that, it was just kind of like, I didn't really talk about it with anybody for a couple of years until middle school. So that leads us to the next question. How did other people close to you respond to being saved in Jesus Christ? Was it easy transition for them, or was it difficult, and why?
Other people respond to you being saved in Christ. Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
So I'll answer, yeah.
Dyslexia, can't read.
No, that's cool. So the first part, I feel like, okay, because I said before, I've been going to a religious school since I was young, so it was kind of expected. It wasn't a big shock or wow, like he changed he turned his life over, because I didn't deal with, I guess, a great loss, or kind of similar to what you. So it wasn't that big of a. It is a big deal, but it wasn't. It was expected. It wasn't like, oh, this is like we got to go out and celebrate. Like he's changing his life. Like I didn't have that upbringing. So, and then you.
For me, it kind of was like a slow burn. I actually didn't do anything after I got saved, because again, third grader, what were you gonna do? It wasn't until I got to middle school, that's when things started getting a little bit interesting. I started running to Christ a little bit more around middle school, because I was kind of scared of the whole experience, but also bullying for me got very different. It wasn't like the typical...
You were being bullied? Or?
Yeah, because again, I'm like... I had a weird phase growing up. I always dressed in camouflage. So I stuck out like a sore thumb, but I was also always kind of like the tall, nerdy, weak kid. Because I didn't really like getting into fights. In fact, I actively avoided them, because in the second grade, I hit a kid so hard when we were play fighting that it knocked him to the floor. So I didn't really like getting into fights, because I didn't want to hurt anybody. And so people kind of saw that as me being weak, and they would pick on me in such a way that I would start to do, I guess I learned what this term is, which is fawning, where you just kind of freeze up. And what they were picking on me was so bad that it actually kind of drove me to a very bad place where I started thinking about killing myself.
Wow.
So that's a serious thing, and I don't want to get too far into that. But but to really summarize it, that's kind of how people were kind of treating me. They some of them knew I was a Christian, some of them didn't. To them, it didn't really matter, because in middle school, everyone was just kind of being kind of ruthless to each other for a certain time. At least in my experience. It wasn't until I started going to a church, because my family, despite growing up on the island for a very long time, we've been through at least multiple churches. Due to church hurt, we tend to move a lot, and we went to this one church that happened to be smack dab in the middle of all these different high schools and middle schools, and that's when I started going there. And it's through there that I found a really good Christian community that I started to grow in, and that's how I started to get really, really deep into Christ. And from there, it kind of became my safe haven. It became my spot where I could just kind of be myself and grow in Christ. So that's kind of how it became for me. Like, God provided me a place to have refuge from school.
Okay, so the second part, I don't know if you answered it, but it was it an easy transition for them to respond to you being saved?
I think it didn't matter to most people.
Right.
Because again, middle school, I wasn't really loud and proud about it right then and there. It wasn't until I got into like high school and college that I was a little bit more about it. But the reason why I think it was because I was kind of just going there to find shelter from, I guess, this rainstorm of reality. but also it was just my place to kind of grow and just kind of be shaped and molded by it, by pretty much Christ's like people and Christ himself. Because during that time I started reading the Bible, I started getting into the Word, I started getting really, really deep. And then I ended up finding myself this really good group of friends that kind of accepted me and helped me embrace more of my faith with Christ and my walk with Christ. And we're still friends to this day, so we always touch base every once in a while. But yeah.
Okay.
And how about you, Shaq?
How did other people close to me respond? I think I answered it. I was like, they...
Kind of just
it was
thought
expected.
It was expected.
Yeah. I kind of said it in the other question prior. Okay, so the next question is, if you didn't grow up in a Christian household, how do you think your environment shaped you into the person you become before Christ?
Oh, so do you want to answer this, or you want me to answer this?
This one is a little more complex. I guess if I didn't.
Yeah.
How do you think your environment shaped you?
So
Well, for me, the school would have. If I didn't at home, I guess being in the Catholic school in the beginning, and then going to a Christian school, it would have shaped me. So I probably would have came out the same. Anyway. And also, due to the fact I said my father, he wasn't a religious guy. He only pointed me in that direction because the private schools, at least back then anyway, they usually excelled in academics. So he wasn't looking at it like, oh, I want you to be the most religious, even though he should have, but he was thinking it more just like my studies, etc. So I feel like the outcome would have been the same. I would have still went either way.
Yeah, I also heard that like Catholic schools, they want you to get a C or better. If you get a D, it's a fail.
It's failing.
It's like, wow, like D.
D's don't get degrees in those schools. No.
Yeah, it's like D's. No, don't do that again.
D's don't get diplomas.
Yes.
Right. So we didn't know. We had to at least get like a 75. If we got a D, we would get a letter sent home with the test, and our parents would have to sign it.
Ooh.
So if you got like a 61, 62, anything like that, D minus, you'd have to sign it and bring it back the next day.
Jeez.
And if you didn't, there was a time where I didn't want to get it signed because I didn't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
They would let you sit outside the classroom, and then they would call your parents and then tell them. So it's either you would have to go home and face the music, or we're just going to embarrass you and have your parents come up here or something like that. So I was really, it
Catholic schools are brutal.
It was bad.
Yo.
I mean, it was good in the end, but...
It was good in the end, but yeah.
But going through it, I was like, this is
hard. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not going to get into that, but... for me, I feel like if my parents weren't saved, it would be a totally different scenario. Growing up on the island, I got to see a lot of, good and bad parents. I got to see a lot of bad parents, and I'm kind of glad that my parents actually knew Christ, because I feel like if they didn't, it'd be a totally different story. Even though I feel like my father was a better influence of Christ than my mother was, but my mother was just an overall better influence on me. That's a little weird tidbit I want to say, but I will say, I think if they weren't saved, I probably would not have known Christ as early as I did. I think at some point I would find out, because I don't know. It would scratch a little itch that I need to know what's going on in the world. But yeah, that's
Okay, so now we're right. Did the second part kind of answer the first two? The second part of this question, it says, how do you think Christ has transitioned those parts of you for the better? Did we kind of say that already?
I don't think we have, but I could definitely say this. For me, without Christ, I would have not met my closest friends, been through all the adventures I've been through, really got delivered from my depression and suicidal tendencies that I used to have as a kid. Because Christ was that shelter for me to kind of get away from the bullying, it kind of kept me alive and strengthened me be a little bit more bold, but also to be like a little bit more resistant to what the other kids, the other bullies, and what the enemy was doing to me at the time. So I was able to kind of like power through it because of Christ. And, you know, again, like that whole verse, because Christ strengthens me, I can overcome anything. I can jump over a mountain. I can jump higher than a mountain because a mountain doesn't jump. Sorry, that was a joke. I wanted to see if anyone got that. Sorry.
No, it kind of went over.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah. Okay.
For anybody who's listening, we're doing this very late in the middle of the night. It's all past our bedtime. We're about ready to go.
Right. It's like 2:00 in the morning or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like
So
that.
we're extremely tired.
Yeah. I'm already hallucinating the little elf boy right next to the shoulder.
Right. Okay. So the last question now for non-family members: did your testimony help bring someone else to Christ? Describe what was that experience like?
I got to bring. I met two people. One guy I haven't seen in years. His name is AJ. He goes by the name Alex, I think, after he got saved. But I haven't heard from him since high school. And after that, we kind of dropped off. He was a senior at the time, so he graduated the following year, so I don't know what happened. But he got saved recently during that time. And then one of my dad's friends also got saved. And they both kept asking questions like, who is Jesus? What is this? What is that? What does this mean in the Bible? And we would kind of walk them through it. Those are the only two examples that I can recall that I didn't get someone saved, but I had influence to lead them closer to Christ or suggest to them to go there. Because one of the things I found out is share your testimony all the time, but use your words when necessary. So I think the more you practice living in Christ, the more you practice faith, it becomes like going to the gym and working out, but also
second nature.
Yeah, but it also doesn't need to be like always explained. Sometimes you just need to act it.
Right.
Because, you know, actions without faith is meaningless, and faith without actions is meaningless. So it kind of goes both ways. We gotta exercise both.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, for non-family members, I would say not fully. I didn't bring them fully to Christ, but I did open their mind up to the idea and try to get them to go. I have invited people to church that were non-believers. So I do want to say that they did like the experience, and due to the fact that they knew me, people that I grew up with, they did kind of say like, hey, you know, thanks for inviting me. But as far as like fully bringing them in or them getting baptized or anything like that, I haven't. Which I feel like I can still do. It's not too late. But I just, I guess I just didn't have the patience back then as I do now. So we talking like back then or now? We talking present day or?
It doesn't seem to say, but I think that's up to your own interpretation, I would say.
Okay. Well, back then I want to say, yeah, no, I haven't fully brought anyone, but I can still. It's not.
So for the other people who are also saved that are listening to this podcast, there's always a chance, but also don't feel like just because you haven't done so. This is also for you, Shaq. Just because you haven't done so now does not mean you can't, but also don't think that just the only thing that every Christian has to do is just evangelize. Evangelize is very hard.
Right.
I've only influenced. I've never fully on like, hey, you want to pray with me the Romans Road prayer, which is like, if you accept Christ into your heart and he dwells within you, you are now saved. Like that kind of thing. I've never walked through someone with that, but it doesn't mean that I can't. It just means I have to practice doing that. And even if it's unsuccessful, it's kind of like dating. Hey, can I get your number, girl? And she's like, no. You just kind of got to throw your hat out there. And that's like a very big challenge, too.
Putting yourself out there and seeing,
yeah.
Because people can reject it, and you know, naturally, by nature, we don't like being rejected.
No.
We tend to hide, or not hide, but be more passive about it instead
yeah.
of more assertive and being
Yeah.
more outspoken. I feel
Yeah.
like that too. Growing up, I wasn't as outspoken. I
Yeah,
mostly kept
same.
it to myself,
Yeah.
which was wrong. Not wrong, but I could have improved on.
Yeah,
But-
I don't disagree with you on that. I totally agree with you. I still want to do that, and I'm hoping to have more opportunities to do that. I'm hoping to have more opportunities to do that. I have like friends that are like telling me, "Yo, I want to get my best friend saved." I was like, you know what, you go. But you know, it does become kind of hard when you try and put that into practice with a total stranger or a person that you just met off the street. Like that's something you definitely want to pray over. That's definitely something you definitely want to like lean into, I would say. But you know, usually us being go right ahead.
No, I was gonna say this is when I was on social media, on TikTok actually. There were a group of people. I used to, it was like the live TikTok live chat or whatever.
Yeah.
And I did ask them about it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try and see what I can have. Like, if I can put God in there, have that any influence or see where their faith is at. And there was this one girl I remember she was saying like she wanted to read more, and on the TikTok live before she would just start chatting with her friends, she would try to read a verse, try to dedicate it, and I would tell her like, that's good, like use your platform to speak louder to people. So as we were talking about like stop being so soft spoken and like be more outspoken.
Yeah.
So social media could be a tool. If I'm thinking about like how I can amplify my voice to more people, I guess social media would be an outlet for me to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Have you done that? Like, this is like a bonus question. Like,
have I used social media to
media?
promote Jesus? Tried, but then again, I did so in a very cringy, nerdy way. Yeah, like.
But what about
PPFM, meaning please pray for me, was like a thing I tried to do, but I feel like nowadays if you say PP, everyone thinks about PP.
What?
PP.
Oh.
Yeah, going to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like
I didn't get
you're good. You need to take a nap, my friend. You need to.
It is 2:00 in the morning, mind you. So
Yeah. Our audio engineer and one person.
yeah, she's sleeping. We kind of like it's
she's
on autopilot.
she's just in the back.
Yeah.
She's just in the back. she's trying not to like go to sleep, but
like with social media. So I don't know if you guys know, but you play like you're a musician. So what about your music?
I have wrote a few Christian songs. I really haven't done too much. The one that I remember the most was Reflections, and I still have not finished the lyrics. Weird thing about me, I'm left-handed, so apparently when you're left brain, you tend to not think of lyrics. You tend to think
They say left-handed individuals are typically smarter. I don't know if it's true, but they have a higher IQ typically than
I haven't tested that, but I gotta check the notes on that study because I am not that smart. I've walked into.
Are you ambidextrous? Like you use both?
Ambidextrous? No, I can't do that. Oh gosh, listen. I used to do archery. I tried to switch the bow to the other hand, and it
didn't work out. Oh.
Well, the instructor was really mad because the arrows kept going on the ground instead of into the target. So when I switched to left-handed, it went boop, boop, boop. Okay, you're left-handed, and you're really good at it. Stick to hitting those bullseyes.
So the music, we were saying.
Yeah, back to the music. So music for me, it was just... That's actually one of the closest connections I have to Christ because I started getting into a lot of Christian music after I got saved. Again, my favorite genre to this day, I still listen to it, is metal. Oh.
Punk rock,
heavy metal, any...
Linkin Park, no? Nobody?
I have become so blind now.
Yeah, we got someone.
Yeah, I don't want to sing the lyrics, that way we don't get copyrighted, but what was it? Yeah, no, stuff like that I really got into, and I started to reflect upon it and ponder on it with, Christian music and then reading the Bible and kind of seeing the parallels of what they were talking about. Some of them were talking about straight up in the Bible, and I thought that was really cool. Other times they were just talking about their lives, their missions, their own struggles. I think one of my favorite ones, like when I was growing up, was very reflective of me, which was Unseen Light by Impending Doom with Ryan Clark as a feature to it. And that was like a really good one. If you guys ever get the chance, you should listen to it. But nowadays, I listen to it now and I'm like, why did he repeat the same like way of singing it each time? I don't know. But getting to the point, music kind of became one of those big connections between me and Christ. I always associate God with music in some way.
It is for a lot of people. I feel like people have their different, like as we spoke about platforms, but different hobbies as well that they can connect with Christ better. So I feel like music, me personally, I didn't play any music or anything like that. I think I played like the clarinet or whatever, but this was like elementary school. It wasn't like really like for God or anything like that. It was just for fun on the side.
Okay, I'm not gonna fill in the rest of the lyrics, or else we're gonna get copyrighted by Nintendo. Hey, don't sue us. As much as we like Mario. Yeah, I would say definitely, like, if God can use you in a hobby, whether it's like something as simple as like building a ship, listening to music, or even just playing a card game. I think I knew a guy once. He got his best friend saved through playing Pokemon cards together with his friend.
Oh.
So he just created an environment where his friend felt very comfortable.
Okay.
And he's just started sharing the word of Christ with him.
That's right.
Probably through his own testimony or probably through something that he read. And he said, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And got his friend interested. And that's how he was able to go to church and then eventually find Christ.
Right.
Usually, from what I've seen a lot of times, like a lot of people... Like when you get older as an adult, most people start finding Christ after a bad relationship. But when you're a kid, you're finding like an inner peace that you don't have at home or in school or wherever. So I feel like when you start to transition to an older or younger age or a different spot in your life, you tend to find different people coming to Christ for different reasons. Like you and me, we kind of grew up in it, but I feel like other people that are kind of more new to the faith, it's like to me a little bit more awe-inspiring to see where they came from, but it's also kind of like, for me it's like I didn't have that happen to me. I just got bullied. Like that was it. But I mean, I
was more just the class clown, so I was more disruptive, not like by causing physical pain or anything like that, like the typical generic bully would, but just more laughing a lot and not paying attention to what's going on. But that's the same thing with me. I was kind of class clownish too, right? Because I like making people laugh. It's always me
fun.
too. I still we do it to
dude.
You know,
no. That's why I make fart jokes all the time.
Okay, I don't do that. But.
Well, I do because you know what? Listen, it sounds like a trumpet. It's coming from a place that's very stinky, and no one expects it when it's in mid-conversation.
Okay, so your music, that's a part of...
My music is also kind of like where my fart sounds come from.
Okay, all right.
That's why I like heavy metal, because if it sounds like a fart, it sounds perfect.
Okay, interesting way to describe it, but... Okay.
Yeah, come on, like... If that doesn't sound like a fart to you, I don't know what will. Well, the guy's going... That's like him on the toilet.
Okay, so to wrap it all up,
thank you, Shaq.
That's kind of where we stand, and that's our testimony. So,
and listen, if you find this inspiring, feel free to write in the comments, send us a little email,
and share it to your friends.
Yes. And I would also suggest, if you are new to coming to Christ or you're thinking about coming to Christ, I gotta say this, it's the best journey, the best thing that could ever happen. And no, I'm not going to make the Trump voice, but as some people want me to do. But what I want to say is like, listen, Christ is going to take you to a beautiful place you never thought you would be in, that you never see yourself in, and he's going to take you there in such a way that you would never see ever happening, and it'll put you in a state of peace and joy that you will never find anywhere else in the world. Amen?
That's beautiful.
All right. That's how we end it.
All right.